what do you see for the future?
Myself, I see it's over for me pretty much. Runs downward spiral. I'm talking about your future. I think your future looks very good. If anything goes now. Yeah, it's a great time to be an artist. Yeah.
Maybe some of the things that how people talk about that. You can have that baby or people that you know way.
No.
I don't know, it's just you hear it, you know, and you're like, I wonder what it's like.
It's not who you know it's important, it's not the school it's important, it's being true to your vision that's important. And if you're sufficiently neurotic and compulsive obsessive, get your vision out there.
How long have you been living in the States?
All my adult life.
So you're British?
Since 20.
Or Scottish?
Yeah, not Scottish, British. Yeah. I didn't plan on coming here, but like I said, I had $100 and I haven't got enough money to go back yet. And this
So do you have papers to live here?
Yeah, I got papers.
What'd you get, married? And then get the easy way? So how'd you get the papers?
With great difficulty. Great difficulty. It was hard.
Two great words.
Thank you. I don't think I could be a citizen though.
You don't want to be a citizen.
Well, they wouldn't accept me.
Why? Because of your political views?
Yeah, you'd have to say you're not a communist. I really couldn't say that with a beating heart, you know.
That's crazy. You know, why mold to something they want you to be? That's what America's all about.
It didn't work in my case, not
No,
yet.
that's good. That's really good.
So that's the thing, if you're true to your compulsion, it doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah, well, I already figured that much out myself.
Yeah. What else can I say then? What else haven't you figured out I could tell you? Is this a non-smoking zone still?
Well, all over the campus, considering we're outside.
See, us Americans, we're sort of prudish about cigarette smoking. We should be
I
able
come
to
from
smoke
Europe,
everywhere.
we still smoke, drink, have sex. You know,
You know, we
it's
can't
amazing.
even have a beer. You know, they close down at 2 o'clock. You're like,
Unbelievable.
San Diego County's pretty rough.
Yeah.
Well, that's because too many people have acted too stupidly while under the effects of alcohol.
Well, plus we're not adults, so for Americans, when we get loaded, you know, you sort of like want to beat up everybody. You know, American image.
We must talk later. Anything else I could maybe? Not that I know anything particularly.
Well, what kind of work do you have on exhibit? I haven't seen.
We haven't seen it.
Drawing.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Tell us about some of those pictures. Just pick one and describe it and talk about the creative process.
The egg series? Why don't you talk about the egg series, since that's so relevant today, right now, as most of your work is.
What do you hate about American government?
Okay, let's see. We've got 2 questions here. It's not the American government. The American government's not relevant since it's capitalism. Capitalism is the most destructive form on earth. The most destructive economic system on earth. Whether it's American, Japanese or English is not relevant anymore. We have a system of transnational capital. I mean, it's only people like Ross Perot that would try and nationalize that capital. Capital has no flag. In fact, corporations now do not want to be associated particularly with America or with England or Germany or Japan. They want to be transnational. So it is a system of capitalism which is a very dangerous system for capital itself, because it's, see to put this, it's like a balloon that's constantly expanding, and at some point it will pop. $4 trillion goes through the stock markets of the world every single day. Those dollars are not related to real goods, so it's gambling. And at any point, you can have a bank crash, you know, which the governments, the nationalistic governments are protecting. So if we talk about the welfare situation, we're in a system of welfare for the rich, where we, working people, I mean, you don't work, or I don't know, pay all the time to stop the collapse of banking in all these various capitalist countries. And it's a system that's illogical and inefficient. It's capitalism at its most inefficient. So it's not organic capitalism. Organic capitalism as such, you asked me this question, I'm telling you, organic capitalism...
I just wanted your opinion on what you think
I'm
government
not seduced into talking about nationalism, because that's something that really happened in the 50s. You know, and even though the Buchanans and the Ross Perot's are trying to bring that back as an ideology, that embarrasses capitalists. They do not want that. You know, they don't want borders. The equivalent would be Napoleon in the French Revolution, where they wanted to get rid of the monarch class to stop the tariffs over the borders of various countries. So when they have to pay nationalistic taxes, capitalists aren't pleased. They want a one world labour market they can constantly exploit without any barrier whatsoever. And if it means destroying whole countries and whole indigenous people, they will do it to get a profit.
That's right.
You know, and to call it American or to call it Japanese.
It's just world politics.
It's world domination, which, you know, Karl Marx wrote about, is the highest point of capitalism. But it will not survive. It will not survive. And so, you know, you're fortunate in as much you're seeing the tail end of capitalism. This is the end of it. And in its death throes, it is at its most dangerous. It is at its most dangerous.
Thank you.
Don't you agree, though?
AIDS. I mean, AIDS, if we can link that up.
I wanted to go back
We're
to
going
the
to the AIDS thing now.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
We link that up.
to
That's the
interrupt.
magic bullet that capital has put money into, the magic bullet of curing AIDS, and millions of people have died. And this is how the medical profession reflects the ideology of the dominant economic class. That people die in this pandemic because it's a misdirection of capital. AIDS is a preventable disease, which governments didn't care about because there's no money in it. There's money in AIDS. There's money in drug companies. So that's where all the millions of dollars have been directed. Not in social services, not in caring for people, giving them psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers. It's all been put into this magic bullet. The drug, the wonder drug. With no education. No education. So they've allowed this pandemic, they being the capitalist class, have allowed this pandemic to continue killing people. And the AIDS virus is mutating to another type of virus. It's now AIDS virus 2. You know, meanwhile we're still at this debate of should we have sex education in schools. I mean, this is the level of debate. You know, where proto-fascists run around within the embrace of the ruling class to destroy children. Ha! Is this an informal chat? What was the question?
Sort of class of workers. Don't you think, though, that in order for communism, true communism, to work, that it would help to have a one world sort of group of people aligning together and working together? Because, I mean, you have the Soviet Union, and that was like doomed for failure, because once you you know, there was very good intentions, I believe, to begin with. But once people like Stalin got in and they started creating hierarchies in government so that it really wasn't true communism, you had people getting special favors, special privileges, and they were operating in a way to work with all the other capitalist countries. So I think that in order for true communism to work, that all countries would have to agree to a system. That's why I really hate nationalism. Like, even in the unions, it really bothers me because people are saying, oh, you know, don't take it to Mexico. What you do is you go to Mexico and help your Mexican brothers and sisters and say, hey, they deserve the same wage we're getting over here. And
Wages in Mexico, and they come here. $3 an hour is like great. Oh, that's
It's while they can divide one group of workers from another group of workers, they will always win. And as this is a country of immigrants, you have constant immigrant population moving in, desperate for work, that will happily destroy the unionization. So the bosses have got that all figured out, and we have to make a leap, you know, a leap here that, let's just go back to Stalin. Just let's go back a little bit. You can't have any pure socialist system unless you analyze the existence of the dominant class. Soviet Union could never have been socialist. They had an A-bomb stuck down their throat. You can't develop a system of socialism when you have to spend so much money on defending your revolution. It's very, very difficult. And that was a distortion of socialism, not Stalin. In fact, if you're going to go back in history, I would say the distortion was more to do with Khrushchev than Stalin. But that's a different argument. But you can't develop in the way you choose when your neighbor is threatening to kill you. So you're distorted all the time. So we can't really preconceptualize before the event about communism or what type of socialism or what type of group we all choose to be in, so everyone can share. Everyone can share, because it's actually, if there is any human nature at all, it's that we're social beings and we share with each other. If that wasn't the case, we wouldn't have survived as a species. So what's happening in our economic system is very, very unnatural to us. It's very unnatural. It's against everything human beings are about. It's a real distortion. But you can't, you know, argue with each other and fight against each other. There's only one enemy, you know, and that enemy is a faceless, cruel creature, you know, and it's called the almighty dollar or the almighty yen or franc. And it comes into this world dripping in blood. And they'll watch as you tear each other apart for a $3 job or a $2 job or $1 job, and then slavery. They don't care. And the only way we can protect ourselves from them is by unity that goes across race and gender. And however difficult that is, that has to happen. You know, and in my country, you know, it's poor, very poor people, very poor. It's, you know, it's a bit further along in the decline of capital. Very poor people. And we have to have unity to defend what's alive, life, however romantic that sounds, which means listening to each other. And it's hard, it's very hard.
it's been my experience, though, that a lot of unions have said, you know, to one another, they'll get upset, you know, about another country losing the job, or losing their jobs to another country, and that's why I pointed out that the union should
Unionists are a big threat to their financial profit.
Unions are pretty dead, I'd say, here in America.
They're not dead. That's not so.
Well, they're here, but it's just that I'd say they're in decline, yes, and that the movement has sort of been hush-hushed, and, you know, it's changed a lot. Probably, I mean, Reagan has had a big influence on that.
You made a dent. You made a dent in it anyway. It's noticeable. They're not as strong as they once were.
You know what? The whole American thing that I've figured out is blaming the victim. It's very big in this country. The unions are the victim of a ruthless attack. So when you say unions are weak, it's like just like saying, well, someone in a death camp is weak, you know, because they're starved to death. It's not analysing.
I'm not putting down
No, I know you're
I'm
not.
pro
I know.
union.
But think. What's the analysis? Why are unions weak? Why are unions in
They're
this
not
state?
profitable, that's why. I mean, they don't want them to work, obviously.
Right.
I mean, they create every kind of enticement that's out there so that they cut the unions down. You know, if they go on strike, okay, well here, you take the job. You know, people need jobs, so somebody's willing to go in there so that they can have bread on the table. You know, that's what it's all about. It's very sad.
When the conditions are right, the conditions aren't right at this time. When the conditions are right, there'll be an overthrow of the system. And even if we don't see those conditions, capital itself will destroy itself. So if I say to you, well, who owns Xerox Corporation? I give you that as a task. Find out for me who owns Xerox. Now you could go to a library, you'd go to a computer and you'd find out. In that minute, who owns Xerox Corporation? By 6 o'clock tonight, it will be different people owning Xerox Corporation. So this is so unstable that someone who owns part of Xerox could own part of a competitor of Xerox at the same time. See what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very interesting state of capitalism, that it's capital competing with itself. I have very optimistic hopes for capitalism. It's going to go. You know, I go into Citibank and I say to them this question, I say, how much have you got in your reserve fund? Just out of interest. And they won't answer me. You know why they won't answer me? Because they don't have any fucking... They don't have any reserve funds. See? There is no money.
So do you have children? Do you have children?
No, I didn't reproduce myself.
No?
You know, they wouldn't be like, you know what happens when reds reproduce themselves?
No, that's a good...
I'm surprised to hear that.
It's a job.
You're more famous for being an artist than a politician, aren't you?
I don't think...
Or well known instead of...
So why'd
Well?
you split from England? Why don't you live over there?
Well, I do a lot of times.
You
I
go
do.
back
I've
over there
just
and
been there. In Liverpool, where I come from, it has like 70% unemployment. You know, so this truck comes to the end of our street every day with food. You know, it's all like ripped off food. And we all go and get the food. And then all the wiring in Liverpool is out the street. You know, it's like rewiring. My sister hasn't paid her poll tax in 3 years. They could threaten her with prison.
Oh, gee.
It's really interesting. You know, and then there's bad running at night. Bad running, you know what I mean? It's like you wake up at night and you hear like scampering, running. You know, there's good running and bad running. There's bad running, you go and hide.
Like gangs?
Yeah,
Similar to gangs.
yeah, big gangs. My sister's boyfriend got shot, so he's coming over next week. I want to give him a good time in New York because he's wounded. You know, he got shot in a drive-by.
Subway.
Poor guy. I just hope he doesn't get shot in Manhattan. You know, because I want it to be a nice holiday for him. You know, and he's got a hole here.
Sue, I have a question. Once the truck goes by, I have to read this. What keeps you sane while you're working on these subjects?
We're presuming I'm saying wobbling off my trolley. Falling off my cart.
Do you like taboos?
I've got great weaknesses for any sort of chemicals. I have to watch that.
How do you separate your work from just normal life? Does that make sense?
Who has a normal life anymore? I mean, all I think about, I don't think about is money, like how to get it. You know what I mean? How can I get You know, those closest to the heel of the boot can always think more clearly. No, I think doing this work is it's healthy, 'cause it's like, beauty isn't truth, truth is beauty. Any other questions then?
May I interject? I know normally the cameraman doesn't say anything, but you mentioned earlier that we are a nation of immigrants. I just wanted to make a slight correction. Being of a Chicano, Mexicano, we're indigenous people, and we're the only people along with the Indians that are not immigrants to this country. It makes a difference in the polemic, because people want to classify us as like everybody else. We arrived late, Johnny-come-latelys, but we are the original inhabitants of the Americas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think in the industrial society, I should have said, since the Industrial Revolution, it's a nation of immigrants. You know, it's busting the labor force. But you're right.
Or settlers, as they say in South Africa.
What do you guys think? What political thought?
There seems to be, I mean, like I've had jobs, you know, like file clerking and stuff like that, where you're in a very conservative crowd. They seem to feel, you know, like, you know, it's the typical hype you hear, you know, they're taking our jobs, and, you know.
Who's they?
You know, Mexicans or Chicanos or whatever you have. You know, whoever is like being made the scapegoat that particular week, really. But, you know, I mean, there's a lot of that going around, but I think in the younger generation, you know, like, I hear a lot of young people being really disheartened with the situation. You know? So I think that I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if, like, the people that are coming up now are going to be like that, or, you know, be like the older people, you know, set in their ways.
People, Americans won't sit down and say, I'm a strawberry picker. And, you know, it's not half bad to go out to that strawberry field and pick these things every day. It's really kind of nice. You know, and that's part of Phil Knight, the CEO of Nike, when asked why they build Nike shoes in Indonesia and other, you know, third world countries like that for like 5 cents a day for these employees, has said several times that Americans don't want to make shoes. Americans don't want to make shoes for what Phil Knight feels it's worth to him to have people make his shoes. So you get people who might make shoes for a while, but they're thinking, boy, there's got to be something better. There's got to be something I can make more money at. And I don't want to sit in this place and be the shoemaker.
You know, the thing that we work for in capitalism, you know, it's like inherently that way. I mean, it's, you know, and actually I'd be happy to pick strawberries as long as I had like a roof over my head and like, you know, medical and stuff.
About a shame. You know, because it's backbreaker.
Right. That's true too.
I mean, you need heavy health insurance for strawberries. It shouldn't be done by human beings.
Well, we should have mass machines picking strawberries.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have strawberry Pop-Tarts.
Machine every day.
You know? So.
I mean, if it's alienated labour, it should be shared.
Yeah.
There you go.
You know, so you can be a physicist and you can be a strawberry picker. It's shared labour.
Yeah, we should share that.
I mean, this is the inefficiency of capitalism. Is there's so much potential in human beings. You know, and we could have resolved the AIDS virus. You know, if all the human brain is put together. And it's all the potential of all these children. Yeah, it's just wasted. Yeah, what we could have done as humans.
I think a lot of energy is going so much on survival around the world, you know, because it's really tough to focus on education or art or more philosophical things when you're trying to, you know, feed yourself and your kids. So in that sense, it's like, it's tough to talk to people like in Philadelphia or other cities where people are on welfare and they're just trying to figure out how they're going to make it the next day. They can't go, well, what's wrong with America? They're just like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? So, and I think capitalism just takes advantage of that, of people not being able to focus on what the true problems are, And most people like that usually tend to focus on things like the OJ trial, because they just want an out, something that will take them out from them for a short period of time. I mean, not that I'm looking back to watch the trial, but just generally speaking, it's such a complex situation. It's so hard just to pinpoint and say, this is the problem and this is how to fix it. Because it's such a big nation. And I think, like Ellie was saying, that a lot of young people, they're just, they grow up not having much hope for the future because, what's meaningful? Many of them.
What's meaningful to you?
Yeah, I mean, you know what?
No, what's meaningful?
Now, what? I've got $2 million.
And
No
they
way.
go, I'll give you $2 million if you paint like flowers and faces for the rest of your life.
I couldn't do that.
No, you could, because you got the rage inside of you.
Yeah, it would just
like,
ooze out.
Get into it. Fight against something. I'm not happy, like being content.
Well, what I meant is more like if you find what you like doing.
Well, you were saying. I mean, I'm asking you, like, what is meaningful for you?
For me, in my life, personally.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we all have to search for.
I think just being able to be creative. Think about it. Every day in your life, everything you do is something you create.
So I guess we just have different things.
Well, let's say in an ideal situation, it's about fulfilling your potential. That every human has the potential to be fulfilled, and for 90% of people in this country, they can't. They can't give, they're not allowed to give, they're not allowed to share what they have. They're reduced to striving to pay a landlord and striving. When you see children, that is the worst thing. You see like children that aren't given any opportunity to give their talents a world. You see them destroyed at such an early age. It's criminal. Fucking criminal. Isn't it?
Yeah, kids, I mean, I'd give up my life for this little kid just to get off on doing some things that I was able to do. Probably ready, kid, when you get older to face what's ahead of you. It's so tough for kids because adults, those rich people or the government, they have all the money, they have everything. And they have their little grandkids. But they don't even care about their grandkids. They don't even care about children, period.
No,
they
it's
just
short
want that.
spare. It's really funny. They don't have the luxury of spare.
It's a media thing. It's hype.
I mean, I think like the revolutions going on around the world, it's very, very hopeful. However those revolutions manifest, even if it's the Dalai Lama or it's the Zapatistas, there's so much positive happening of people. Yeah, they're fighting back, but they're not fighting back with hatred. They're fighting with
right.
Yeah, yeah, and that's happening all over the place. So yeah, it's bad, but it's, however much you push something, it'll come back. So people who are really being pushed bounce back. It's sort of like a law of equilibrium or something.
We keep rebelling against the part of capitalism, which I'd say every person here is living and enjoying every day. You're drinking it out of this little Welch's drink box right here. You wouldn't be drinking out of that without capitalism.
Man,
capitalism is needed.
I'm drinking out of this because I'm thirsty.
If we take it back,
my wife packed this in my lunch.
Why?
That's.
Can I finish saying my statement?
Yeah, sure.
if we're talking about earlier, talking about communism, think about Karl Marx, he was saying communists started the wrong side. We're supposed to take capitalism to its extreme point. So we've taken all the resources, got to have the highest quality VCR, highest quality television, TV, everything that can be made, cars, and then rebel. Then you spread it out equally to everybody. We can't have the highest quality products without capitalism. Without competition, we're not going to make it. People in Russia are not working in the field.
Wait.
How the people in Russia were working on the property they had?
You know what's interesting? If we all had a dictionary right here, let's look up capitalism, really what capitalism is, and forget the Karl Marx and all those Russian people. Just look at the definition of communism in the dictionary.
Capitalism or communism?
Communism. Just look at it in the dictionary. And what does it say? I can't remember what it says, but I mean it's totally different from what people have like put it into.
Well, I mean, different than socialism.
I'm not sure if that's exactly true.
So,
you granted scholarships or grants?
The government takes care of you. So then you sell your paintings to the highest bidder, correct? Or whoever will give you the most money. You give them away for free.
Some I give away for doing commercial art. I would sooner be compromised doing Madonna than compromised doing political art where I can't get exactly what I want to say in.
So you have fallen into the capitalistic.
You don't love,
Well,
If you don't necessarily agree, I think you're confusing things, because if you don't know, that's great, but how can you live in a communist society when it doesn't exist? You can't. You have to operate within the system that you're...
Great Britain. And that route is the most despicable route.
We don't have much room left in England now.
I don't know, you have a system of government, you have a banking system that's based on the British Empire.
Yeah, that part of capitalism is probably still rooted.
Would you say we're only a few generations behind England? We're becoming a renter.
I think you're a few years behind England. You know, and actually, I still want to go back to that point that Liverpool actually is considered a third world country. It has, you know, even though it's within Britain, there are places within Britain that are the poorest communities in Europe, even poorer than parts of southern Italy. So we're getting to a stage now where these first world countries, areas within those first world countries, are extremely poor in terms of standard of living. You know,
do you believe that there are victims in the social pyramid of capitalism at every point in the pyramid? Or do you, at what point do the victims begin to appear? The third rung down, the third rung up from the bottom? Where do they begin to appear?
But no, not to worry. I'm pulling my socks up.
well, let's say that, as I said before, organic capitalism, organic means related to production, died in 1929. From thenceforth it became abstract capital related to a war economy. It's artificial capitalism. It's not, we're not exchanging this piece of paper for a grain of salt. It has no meaning, it has no value based on real production. So, I also don't want to create a hierarchy of human beings against all other life. I feel capital is destroying life as we know it, period. I just saw something in a magazine that's how all migrating birds go through this particular reservoir in Mexico, and they're all dead. And all these beautiful songbirds, because some chemical company dumped the human beings. They were slowly dying, but the birds died instantly. These beautiful songbirds, and they had to make big graves and throw hundreds of thousands of songbirds in the graves, just because it's cheaper to dump in a reservoir and dispose of this in a proper way. And what's the worst that's going to happen to the chemical company? Maybe they'll be fined $200. So it's all this beauty of life which should be valued above anything else is destroyed, whether it's human, plants, creatures, fishes in the sea. It's all destroyed for a profit.
Next question. Subject, do you identify your feelings with the victim? Do you feel fear and anger that the victim might have felt in that situation? Or do you stay outside of your work so you can get it done?
Well, I'm beginning to question the validity of doing this type of work, A. So, one, it's in a constant state of constantly changing. It's not like I have any particular answers. My answers change from one situation to the next. After the AIDS series, I didn't do any more work because I found the whole having friends who died very, it was impossible for me to continue as an artist. And I hadn't really come back as an artist. I was thinking of getting skills such as nursing. So the art is not a fetishized thing in and of itself. I might not be an artist next year. This work here is so much about my past. It might not be about any future. If I'm lucky enough to have a future, it might not be there. I mean, I think now we should be training triage as opposed to doing painting. If journalism could be summed up, it would be when you do an article or job, you wouldn't be ashamed to go back to the people who you're depicting. There is no such thing as a liberal agenda, and ambiguity itself is an injection of the political right. So artwork that is ambiguous to me is the most political art. And I think Dante said something in the 15th century, I can't remember the quote, forget it. It's about being in a moral vacuum that I think certain people witness reality. The majority of people don't choose to witness it, or it's very much concealed from them. But the way I see the world is, so I woke up my eyes and I thought, we're living in genocide. I see that all the time. And it's so unusual as a content of art in the 20th century because who controls culture? And it's like if slaughterhouses had glass walls, there wouldn't be slaughterhouses. I see prisons being built up everywhere to put innocent people in. I see the death penalty, which is evil. You know, I see a legal system that criminalizes the poor. And hardly any of this is referred to in journalism. So the reality I see is not my personal reality. It is a class reality. That really answers your question,
like the slaughterhouse, where you just go and knock on the door and walk in, or the AIDS ward, or the night court.
I have friends who work in slaughterhouses. So they say, oh, Sue, you've got to see this, you've got to draw this. And so they share their reality with me. In terms of the AIDS ward, I believe Hillary Clinton was going to come to that ward to change the, it was in Galveston, to talk about her national health care thing. This was before she was muzzled. And they wanted, everything's concealed to do with the medical system. It's very much concealed, especially the AIDS pandemic is concealed. It's a couple of made-for-TV movies and it makes an odd reference in newspapers. But there's all these working people that are working in the front lines that are not, no one takes any notice of them. It's the same as slaughterhouse workers. Almost everything you touch has to do with meat. It's the second biggest industry in the United States, manufacturing industry. And yet, how often do you see inside a slaughterhouse? And yet it's so gigantic. It's the film you put in your camera. It's not just the animal products, they're in everything. And yet working people make that. They do 1,500 cuts an hour, which gives them carpal tunnel syndrome, disease of the wrist. And so that reality is ignored. It's just a gigantic reality where every second 1 million animals are being slaughtered. I think it's actually 3 trillion a year in the United States. But it's all concealed. The labour is concealed, the product's concealed. You get the product in a bloodless cellophane package in the supermarket. And yet what sort of labour went into that? And if you're talking about capital as imperialism, the meat industry destroys indigenous population. It is linked with the oil industry and so we can eat a McDonald's hamburger, they will tear down old growth rainforests and the people living in those forests are murdered. In fact, only one case has been brought to trial in Brazil of an indigenous person being murdered by a landowner. Only one case out of thousands of murders. And these are brutal murders of any people that go up against the meat industry. Brutal murders, that is decapitation, heads stuck on poles. Anyone that resists, and yet the resistance continues. So, you know, a lot of documentaries you see on TV, you'll see the old growth rainforest come down, they'll say, oh, that's sad. But you don't see the people being cut down. And how the legal system does not support the people being cut down and the injustice. So every time we eat meat, we're murdering somebody. You know, it's that simple. Okay, what's next?
Ever felt danger during your observations when you're making sketches for your drawings?
In those situations. While I was doing the AIDS series, I saw a nurse get a needle, I didn't see actually, but she got stuck with a needle that morning. So the needles are put in cheap disposable plastic boxes in each ward. And there could be 1,000 needles sticking out. So you drop the needle in and you get needle stick, which means that worker has to go now, I think, for 6 months, not knowing if she has HIV. In terms of the meat industry, that is the second most dangerous job. I think farming is number one in injuries, in worker injuries. So me standing there and sketching, big deal, you know, compared to someone that's having their fingers chopped off or their back being broken by the amount of labour they have to do. I mean, I've seen people work like I can't believe it, because the lifespan of a meat worker, the labour of a meat worker is age 35. Up to 35, they're so badly damaged, they can't continue. It's quite rare to continue after the age of 35. So it's breaking people's physical body to make these products. So danger schmanger, you know, so you go in and draw, you know, and the boss might give you a death threat, so what? The people that do the threats don't carry it out. It's the silent ones you've got to worry about.
Earlier in preparing for your arrival, you mentioned that there was a difference between people's art and mass art. And can you explain where you feel your art fits in?
The creativity comes in between the advertising, so that would be mass art. It's just something to hold up advertising. People's art is murals or Xerox copies of magazines, something people do. And I guess the work I do will fall in between, a little crack in between those two things, trying to get, which a lot of people do, trying to get some sort of content in the media. Man, savagery, yeah, boring question.
Well, that also truly records man's savagery. Man against man and man against nature. And what, for me, what brought to mind the image that I conjured up in thinking of that statement and you were the men and women who made the art for Sumer, for the ancients, Egyptians. And do you feel a connection? Do you feel a soul connection with those artists?
I don't think it's my work. I think it's our work, for start off. Everything here is so individualized. It's very uncomfortable for me to respond individually to things that I know are individually me. So when you talk about AIDS or meat industry, that's my friends, that's people. Okay, I can draw, I've got a certain skill, but I'm asking you to see through my eyes, not my individual soul, my individual linkages. And, you know, whether it's Sequeris or Katie Kollwitz or any of this, I think we're all about, look, I'm putting myself in that stellar place, but we're about the same type of struggle, and that is documenting the reality of the time. And the only reason I am unhappy or insane is not doing this type of work. It's constantly being individualized, which makes me feel physically sick, because I don't choose it. It's something that's enforced, especially in this country. You know, it's like, oh, you doing political art, oh, Sue Coe. I mean, I've read so many interviews of her. Sue Coe, working class from England. It's just like Sue Coe's horror. It's not my individual horror. And I think that's isolation here is enforced. It's not chosen. There are so many cultural workers doing this type of work. You know, so many. And it's like they'll take one or two and again fetishize the one or two. And I do believe, in terms of being in America, that because I'm white and because I'm from another country, I'm not as threatening than all the other artists doing this type of work are much more threatening. So I'm fully aware of how I can be a fig leaf in the New Yorker, you know. So if I'm going on to the next question about sanity, or how do you keep sane?
That was my question.
Yeah, I mean, the insanity is the enforced isolation that happens. The sanity is, it's not about me, it's about us. Okay. 3 more. Do you do several drawings at the same time? If so, are they all of the same subject matter? Well, this links to how do you support yourself. I support myself by doing commercial art and mass media, so I can get 2 or 3 jobs at the same time, and I do them at the same time. Public grants. I only applied for 1 grant once for my meat book, and I did get it. But I gave the money away, so I don't really count that. You said everything bad happens at night. What does this mean? Can anything good take place during the day? I think I might have meant that in a spiritual way, but I'm not sure because I'm a bit worried about spirituals. You know, spirituals is like, it could be like the rotting lettuce in the bottom of your refrigerator. Maybe it's there, maybe it's not. It's like, where do you put your rage? Well, it's like the rotting iceberg lettuce in my refrigerator. That's where it's put. I mean, I can sum up all these questions by saying this work is about going to a Coca-Cola machine, and I have 50 cents, and I put the money in the machine, and nothing comes out. So I bang and kick the machine. And what's the first thing you do when nothing comes out? You turn around and you go, look, I just put 50 cents in this machine, nothing's coming out. That's what this work is. It's, you want a witness to what's going on. You don't just want to put the money in and nothing happens. You want to show someone. You want to be a witness. And you want witnesses. I mean, she's so amazing. She just so happens to be my sister. But she is in the community. She is a political activist. She has less luxuries than I am. And she doesn't like to see this individualization of my work. She gets very angry. She gets very pissed off. And because she is closer to the heel of the boot, so to speak, she's a lot more in reality than, you know, going around America being socially political illustrator and getting to do talks in university. She feels sad for me that would happen. You know what I mean? Because she is part of a real community. And there's an isolation that goes along already with an artist. And that's something to be combated at every step of the way. But that's what makes me sad. That's what makes me insane. It's not seeing slaughter. It's being constantly isolated and cut off from the source, which is the struggle of people.
Question?
And
you did it without smoke.
I'm just waiting for someone to say, well, you smoke, how can you be a socialist?
You guys want to mention it? Depends on where you're going. You can fit in the truck.
Good evening, and thank you for inviting me. Should I hold this, do you think? I hope that this thing works. This is a series I did a few weeks ago, recording the death of my mother. So I drew her every day. She died fairly quickly, and she wasn't that old, so it was a bit of a shock. Because when they tell you you're terminal, then they put you in a hospice. My mum didn't like the hospice at all. She was frightened, so that's the drawing I did of her in the hospice. And me and my sister decided to take her home and nurse her at home for however long it took. Because we realised a lot of things about the medical profession. One is they medicalise death instead of a beautiful ritual that it should be. It's removed from you. So it's a great privilege to be with my mother during this time period, however difficult it was. So these aren't any good art or anything. I just did this in lots of ways for therapy, because we were nursing her all day. We didn't have much time, and then I'd do a drawing, one a day. And we also took her off all medication as well. And she died of adenocarcinoma within 6 weeks. And so this is just a record, and I think this, I don't know if this is in focus or not, but I think what drawing does, the immediacy of drawing, does it look like it's in focus because I can't see properly? No. No, yeah. When you're drawing someone's portrait, you're getting very close to them, and especially in a situation of, an intense situation such as death, what you want to do is get away from that person. However much you love them, you want to run away. And so drawing really helped me get closer and closer to my mother's journey. It became a language, and she'd see the drawings. So, I did with my mother what I do with all the situations I'm in. I approached it in the same way. This is my sister holding my mother in bed. My sister's a beautiful woman, my favourite person of all time. She's like Karl Marx, Fidel Castro, Rosa Luxemburg, Frida Kahlo, all rolled into one being. And it was very special of us to do this together, and it brought us even closer than we were before, if that was possible. That's my mother's hand. She got very, very thin, like a skeleton. That's her arm and hand. This is 45 minutes before she died, and she's still conscious. My sister's lying on the bed with her. And what she said was, that's why this, to me, is not depressing. It's a privilege to share that with someone, just like giving birth. It should be a ceremony, not something frightening. And it helped me think about death in a much more positive way. What my mother said, this was 45 minutes before she died, she said, I'm opening the door into another room, and I'm just going to go into the other room. And I asked her, are you frightened? And she said, no, I'm not. And this, her heart's still beating when I did this drawing. I'm very close to her, but I could see one pupil's really dilated and one's not. So I knew, even though I could feel a pulse, she was dead. She was brain dead. And that's, she's dead at this point. And I put my own self in, like, I'm next, and it's okay. And, you know, my mum was always, you know, because we just covered her with this really expensive, like, talcum powder that morning. You know, my mum was always a bit naughty, always in her line. And anyway, I called up the funeral guys and they came, they're all in black suits, you know. You know, and this talcum powder, because my mum would never use anything expensive. You know, like even in her death throes, she was calling downstairs to me to reuse garbage bags. Like somehow she knew I was throwing away garbage bags. You know, and you have to reuse them 6 times. And she goes, I know, you're throwing away that garbage bag. This isn't America. I said, okay, Mum. So anyway, there she was all covered with this like Chanel talcum powder, right? And so the 2 serious guys came to take away her body. And then when I saw them outside, they were covered from head to foot in talcum powder. So typical of my mum. She's like powdered them somehow. So then we decided on the funeral, you know, you've got this radical lesbian feminist separatist minister, we had jazz playing, wildflowers, and that was just about it. I mean, it was good. Best funeral I ever went to. This is a birthday party for Nelson Mandela. It's the biggest birthday party in the world. You know, it went all around the world, and it's all various artists in the stage set. Of course, they had a problem with my bit, having politicians in it, but never mind. This homeless person, unemployed person in Central Park. This is the soup kitchen I work in. We don't know who's... It's organised by people who are homeless, so you don't know when you work there who's homeless and who's not, and no one ever asks. But this was the day before Christmas, a week before Christmas, and this time we actually ran out of food, and that's when you have to go to peanut butter. And what we do is early in the morning we go to supermarkets and pick up all the old food that's the date stamp's gone on it, and then we make soups and sandwiches. You know, we call the serving part of this the glamour part. See, I don't do serving, I just do the making. It's glamour to do the serving. So we make 2,000 sandwiches, 2,000 soups, 2,000 boiled eggs, 2,000 coffee, and then occasionally you get Entenmann's pie. So to make them into like 16 pieces of Entenmann's pie. This homeless woman in garbage bags. And I never draw that because it's disrespectful. You know what I'm saying? It's wrong, so I do all these at home. This is the Entenmann's pie day. When you get the Entenmann's pies, that's good. And a lot of folks, when they've been homeless for a long time, can't make eye contact. It's really frightening to make eye contact. No one ever talks to you or looks at you. So this is a good place. It's a good place where you can get a hot sit-down meal and have a chat. This is like a lot of women bring their babies in. They're wrapped in garbage bags to keep them dry. And if you pick up one of the babies, you can hear their chest, all the fluid on the chest. You know, you can actually hear them wheezing. These guys I drew from life, they're eating out the dumpster outside the supermarket. So I'm sketching them. And they turned around and they said to me, "You with the FBI?" I said, if I was with the FBI, wouldn't I have like surveillance cameras? I wouldn't have like an HB Pence and a sketch pad, would I? Yeah, true. This is a Star Trek convention. Yeah, you've got more chance of meeting political people at Star Trek conventions than almost anywhere else. Except now I've abandoned Star Trek for the X-Files, and I'll tell you why. Star Trek's got to be like group therapy in space. right? I mean, they all get together, they're all friendly, and it's a Voyager. I mean, it's sucky. I mean, I want to see aliens and I want to see violence. I don't want to see everyone getting together in groups, having chats, looking down Troy's cleavage or whatever it is. I want sex, violence, and aliens. That's why I like science fiction. So I've sort of abandoned it now. You know, Star Trek. And I get to do these great jobs. Like this week, right, it's the X-Files, and it's the X-Files this week in this magazine. This is the old Star Trek Entertainment Weekly. And what I did, you know, Spock's doing an unethical mind meld with Bones. And there's, you know, the gamesters of Trick City in the foreground. And I just put all this, that's Gene Roddenberry going through the Guardian of Forever. You know, and this is where the editors call you up and they go, well, you've missed out Yeoman Rand, or where's the, you know, what's it? And I go, well, I can't get in every character. It's only a double-page spread, you know. You only get like 2 nights to do this. I mean, just really only character of Star Trek in 2 nights. And there's the boring ones you have to put in, like, oh, Riker. You know, and I went to this conference, Star Trek convention, so I say to Riker, you know, my sister makes me go, she makes me ask political questions. You know, because all the questions in the conventions are like, oh, when's Riker going to have sex with Troy? Or, you know, and I have to ask, you know, Riker, well, how come there's no gays on the Enterprise in the 20th century? You know, how come if you're African American, you've got a mask on your head? You know, I have to ask these questions. So then Riker said we're working on it, and then I wrote a letter to Gene Roddenberry before he died, and he said he was working on it, but I don't see any changes. To you, I mean, it's not good enough, is it? Just because we love Star Trek, we're not going to keep going to the same movie over and over and over again, watching these television shows. They're taking us for granted. They better come up with some good stuff soon. So anyway, I went to this function and I met Spock, or rather, the actor that impersonates Spock. And he was really good. He was like Spock. He was really nice, quite political. I liked him. He was all right. You know, and I said, well, what about the movies? They're sucky. You know, what about the books? They suck. You know, what about Voyager? They suck. What about the film? You know, he said, true, true. You know, he's really good. This was for St. Patrick's Day. It's, well, why can't gays march in the parade? You know, and I had to research St. Patrick, what he did was sweep the snakes out of Ireland. You know, which you know means some anti-women thing, right? You know, all these saint things are like misogyny. You know, like snakes, animal women. I swept women out of Ireland. So anyway, I tried to make it like St. Patrick comes back, maybe he's HIV positive, he can't march in his own parade, he'll sweep up the garbage. So anyway, religious people got upset with this. I don't know why, it's pretty gentle. But the best thing about this, right, did this cover, I thought, Then, this person gave me a 1983 Toyota Celica for this piece of work. And it's in perfect condition. It's mine. So for art it works. You know, do a piece of stupid art and you get a working automobile. For free. I mean, can you believe that? It makes it all worthwhile to me. You know, and I get to meet Spock. This is Night Court, the same magazine, and it was strange because they don't let you in, and I thought courts were supposed to be public, and it's really hard to get in. Then you have to get permission from the judge, and so the court in Manhattan goes on all night. See, when they say his mother works in a beauty parlour, you know what that means, right? This is young alleged prostitutes, commercial sex workers, and They're just like young kids that come to New York, you know, and then they're snaffled up and they've got, you know, if you look underneath the fishnet tights, you see all their long johns all riding up. It's so sad. You get inside this little booth, you know, when they arrest you, you go in that booth, tell the lawyer for 5 seconds why you're not guilty. Then you go in front of the judge. This story is this woman, she just got picked up, she shot these 2 burglars that were breaking into her apartment in the South Bronx, and she shot her. And she had 5 kids in the apartment, and they're doing her for manslaughter. You know, and she said, I called the police 2 or 3 times, they didn't come. And so her bail was just unbelievable. It's like $50,000 or something. So she fell into the arms of her lawyer. She said, why are you doing this to me? She couldn't comprehend it. She was just protecting her children. And then at the back of the court, it opens up. The doors open up and you see people behind the bars. I mean, basically it comes down to this. If you have money, you get off. If you don't have money, you go to jail. That's the bottom, long and short of it, unfortunately. Oh, this is bingo. This was the Liverpool series. I didn't bring all these in. It's my mum, my sister doing bingo, and they took me. It doesn't look like them, because to work for New Yorker, people can't look like what they look like. Okay, they'll sue. And I said, well, my mother's not going to sue me. My sister's not going to sue me if they look like they are. But so they don't look like this. They took me to bingo. You know, and they can do like, well, my mum could do. She could do like 20 sheets at once. You know, my sister would do like 20 sheets, you know, and I have 1 sheet. And you go like, 6, 9, 7, 8, 9, 10, and I go, what did he say, Mum? She'd go, you're so thick, you can't even do 1 sheet. This is the poll tax, you know, because my sister hasn't paid hers in like 3 years, and then you get arrested, you get to go to court, and you can't vote. Like people in England pay poll tax, which they supposedly repealed, but they didn't. It's a whole complicated story. You have to ask another English person about this. This is skinheads in Liverpool, and I was drawing them. They looked very nasty. They were eyeing my shoes. They had some very nice American shoes on. I could see them eyeing up my shoes. You know, I was going to run. They kept looking at me. Because they're English skinheads, they can't afford the bogger boots. You know, they've only got like little cheap gym shoes on. They were like looking at my shoes, and I thought, oh, I better scamper out of there quick. They're going to get my shoes. You know, I had good American shoes on. This is unemployment, where my family go regularly. It's got no smoking, because they're on smokes and drinks. They've got their children and animals with them. You wait, and the number comes up, number 295. Then you go up to this window that they can't hear you through, and you've got to shout through this window your circumstances. You know, well, my husband beat the shit out of me, and I beat the ring. You know, it's really embarrassing. You know, it's a horribly humanizing thing. Oh yeah, this I was supposed to do Newt Gingrich, but I'm not doing them anymore. I'm not dignifying them with my drawing style. I'm sick of it. I've done Thatcher, Reagan, the same heads over and over, these creatures. So I just did a sparrow in the gutter. Oh, this is the beginning of the meat industry stuff, which I've been working on for 6 years. Will be a book next year, spring. It's supposed to be this book by Alexander Coburn that was writing the introduction. It's such a slow writer, you know, but I wanted him. He's the best. He is the greatest journalist in America. So he did it, and it is damn good. Okay, it took him 5 months. It's delayed the publication, but it's worth it. It's called Alexander Coburn. He works for The Nation mostly. He's got a column in The Nation. He is hard-hitting, incredible investigative journalist. And this is Wall Street. All the original stock markets were stockyards. That's where our vocabulary from economics comes from, that, you know, like making a buck. and blood money, and it was all based on animals, just like husbandry was the market, the beginning of the market. And if you go to, I went to Wall Street during the Gulf War, and that hit its second highest peak in history. That's how much war is worth to them. They can make a lot of money off that. So I figured, well, how's Clinton going to be re-elected? You know, he's a one-term president, right? No way can he be re-elected. He's going to have a little war. They always have a little war like a couple of weeks before the election, right? Then you've got to support our boy, our president, blah, 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 $10 trillion in profit. Am I being too cynical here? This is the poultry packers fire in North Carolina where 25 women died, and this is minimum wage labour. And I think it was a couple of men. One man got the 5 doors out of the 6 fire doors, 4 were locked because the boss didn't want the workers to steal a chicken. So when this place immolated, went up in a flash fire, the workers' bodies were piled up against the locked doors. And one of the workers actually went outside, he got a bulldozer, he bulldozed down one of the doors. And this place has never been inspected, non-union, never inspected. And, you know, it's just a tragedy of that when you mechanize death, it's death for not just the creatures, but the human workers. The mechanization of death. And they don't care. A worker's life is worth less to the boss than one fried chicken. This is debeaking, which is in that show. Obviously, chickens have to be debeaked, and someone has to do this job. It's repetitive labour, so the chickens don't peck each other to death. By the time a chicken gets to slaughterhouse, 4 trillion animals are slaughtered in the United States every year. 4 trillion. And by the time the chicken gets to a slaughterhouse, 80% of that chicken's bones are broken because the chicken is genetically engineered only to give calcium to the egg. So can you imagine the suffering of this creature? And the question is not as if they are lesser beings, but can they suffer? That's the question. The philosopher said that. Can they suffer? And Leonardo da Vinci said, while we have slaughterhouses, we'll always have wars. Always. Because if you can accept that species as lesser, you can be trained to think any being is lesser. So the chickens are 6 to 8 in a cage the size of an album cover, and they would peck each other to death. So they're debeaked twice. Sometimes their tongues are taken out when they're debeaked. But they're only units. They're not worth anything. You know, they have no real worth other than their meat. This is kosher Muslim slaughter in New York State. Most slaughter there is kosher. And, you know, I can get into a debate about the lesser cruelty and more cruelty. It's a different procedure of slaughtering. In this particular slaughterhouse, it's as though I told everyone here I'm going to slaughter you one at a time. You would make yourself into a compact cube 8 deep in the corner of that room, and I'd still get you. Now these are goats and sheep, and they scream like children. It's like the sound of a child screaming. And, you know, the guys that work in here, it's a very tough job. It's in blood, it's in incredible heat. In this situation, it's a lot of heat. And, you know, it's just unbelievable. I mean, once your eyes are open, and I used to eat a lot of meat. I liked it. It was tasty. I love bacon sandwiches. And then once my eyes are open, I thought it's like so shocking I can barely live with it. It's so shocking against your spirit or soul or whatever you want to say it is. This is a slaughterhouse within the prison system. What they want to do is really make prisons, which is now a profitable business, and start putting the slaughterhouse within the prison system so the workers don't have any rights. And this, like, you go up on an elevator to shoot the large animal through with a catapult pistol or a stun gun. The animal's not killed by this procedure because the heart has to beat to exsanguinate the blood. This is a stunning device. So I went up on this elevator with the guys, you know, and it was very interesting because you had guards with guns guarding the prisoners who had knives. And this was supposed to be rehabilitation, teaching them how to be slaughterers. So anyway, I went up on the elevator with the guy, Eddie, and he pointed the gun at me and he said, this gun is to kill animals, women, and artists. And then I just giggled, you know, I thought that was a good response. This is a slaughterhouse in Pennsylvania, and this one is large animal slaughterhouse. And this was fairly young cows because the small farmers now are going out of business, so they'll give their young cows over to slaughter. And this one I was standing right there and I was covered with flies, just covered, they're everywhere. And then the guys went out, the buzzers said they all went out to lunch. And this cow in this restraining pen has broken her back, so she can't get up. So she's kicking the restraining pen and falling down. So I drew her for 30 minutes. Every time she fell down, she hadn't been milked in a long time. The milk would come out of her udders and go with a stream of the blood down on the kill floor. And they had to keep, when they came back from lunch, they had to keep kicking her all the time to get up. You know, like kicking her in the side because you can't stun the animal down. The animal has to be standing within the restraining pen. And the absolute horror, I mean, I remember this, her hooves kicking the steel frame, you know, just keep kicking and kicking, trying to get out. And they all know, you know, kosher slaughter, one animal cannot see another animal being slaughtered, kosher and Muslim. In regular slaughter, which is the majority of slaughterhouses, that they do show other animals themselves being slaughtered. This is a veal skinner in Montreal. Most skinners lose all their fingers by the age of 35 because the knives have to be so sharp to separate the hide from the flesh. It's a very skilled job and it's quite highly paid. And this man, I was looking at him and drawing him, and then I noticed he just had stumps. These are veals. I didn't put in many slaughter. This is slaughterhouse in Tucson, which is all Spanish-speaking workers. All the bosses are Anglo. They can't speak Spanish. All the workers are Spanish. So that leads Spanish-speaking. So that leads great safety concerns because they can't communicate. So in this one, there's no safety equipment, no safety boots, no helmets, no non-slip gloves, nothing. And this is a very, very bad place, very bad. And I noticed when the workers, when the animal came in, they would say matala, which is kill her, I believe. And if you're a female on the kill floor, very few females work on the kill floor. I've never seen one, ever, because it upsets the dynamic. Women can work on the kill floor, they're not forbidden. In the 1930s in Chicago, it was African American women would be on the kill floor, but now there is no women on the kill floor. Horse slaughter is becoming very large in the United States, especially Texas. A lot of these old police horses or old pets. This one in the corner here, jaw's broken, so she hasn't eaten in a long time. The red helmets in the slaughterhouse mean trainees, and the majority of workers you see in the slaughterhouse, the large ones, will be trainees because they can't stand the job, which also is a great safety concern, because you're constantly training people and they don't want the job. There's very few people that want to do this work. So horses are interesting because they don't fight, which is, you know, my limited experience. They will trot gladly to the kill floor, but other animals will really fight not to go on the kill floor. And these, it was so cruel. They actually had the S brand for slaughter burnt into their skin, you know. And this is a foal because we saw this one, a pregnant mare, realised she was going to be slaughtered. She immediately gave birth, right just before she went to the kill floor, and they just threw the foal into the garbage. This is for the European Economic Community. It's illegal to eat horse meat in the United States, but it's a big market in Europe. This is my one true happiness, my rodents. You know, I built a ratarama in my apartment. So, you know, they run up and down ceilings and walls. It's like a little network of rat stuff. You know, and I love my rodents. I love rodents. They make me so happy, you know, having them in bed with me in the morning, and then when I come in they rush up and they won't get lifesavers out of my pocket. And I love the smell of them. It's like odour rodent. I could like market it like Elizabeth Taylor's Got Passion. I could market odour rodent smell. I mean, now my other one just died, you know, because I never had males. So I always had females, and then I got these two males that were like snake food. And they were blind, and they're so different from the females. The females make beautiful nests, and they're really loving. The males, all they do is lick their penises like all day. They like sit down and lick penis, and then they roll on their backs like in a really engorged state, and then they fight like seagulls all night, fighting. You know, I squirt water on to break them up, and you know it doesn't work. So I don't know about getting males anymore, but you know, it's a hard thing. You know, because you can't turn a rodent down if it's going to die. I would choose females if I had my choice. They smell beautiful. Oh yeah, and the males don't smell too good. You know, my neighbours, you know, they all got like small dogs. You know, and they go, oh, well, what pets do you have? And I go, you know, I say, they're hairless. You know, because they are hairless, most of my rats. You know, I always say rat, because I live in Manhattan, you know, I don't always say rat. Yeah, I have rats in my apartment. You know, so they're hairless, you know, chinchilla, you know, and I just Oh, this is a CD-ROM I'm working on. It's the porno section. So I did the playroom. It's called The Beat Generation with Ginsberg and Burroughs and these guys, Croninger and Gary Panther. And so we do this Beat Generation CD-ROM for the Whitney. Instead of a catalogue, you know, you get to go to a museum and get a boring catalogue. It's like $50. You know, it's boring. It never has the piece of artwork you want in it. You know, you flick through looking for the one thing that's not in there. It's like postcards in museums. They never have postcards with good stuff, do they? It's always like the flower scenes or some... They never have real juicy, the paintings you want. They have these elements, violence, sex, as I said before, aliens. They don't have that, they have like flowers, cats. So anyway, I'm doing this, like, the porno segment, like you click on the bed, right, and then you get action. I mean, most people here just have a relationship with their hands anyway, so this is the future. You know, and I realised I'm really limited, because I thought, oh, porno, good, what can I do? You know, and I realised how limited I was. You know, so I didn't want to make like men and women, I wanted to make them just like creatures, because all this moves. Yeah, I actually wanted to do aliens, but I didn't want to go for aliens. You know, I did remove parts because it's not suitable, you know, because you might be a young student. You know, it sort of moves. You don't know if they're men or women, I like that. You don't know if it's man, women or women, you don't know. I mean, they're just like crunching creatures, you know. I mean, I'm really fooling myself. I think this is sexual. I mean, it looks all like the rest of my work looks like, you know, the beginning of the Weimar Nazi period. It's like, like fooling myself. Sad the illusions we have. You know, I mean, it looks terrible. Does the thing look sexual? Well, anyway, this sort of moves. You know, you don't know that. You know, people say that's a woman, it's got two men. It's better when it moves. I can't tell you this. You know, it looks dull in pitch. It does twitch. You know, it's like little bucket twitches. I can't explain it to you. I'm in the middle of doing it. Oh, this is the sweatshop series I did for magazine. You know, I had to go into like 5 sweatshops. Things about working in magazines, you don't get very long to do it. You know, you only get like a few days or maybe a week or something. This is the fashion district. These workers are a lot from Guatemala and Salvador. It's all non-union, of course. And what's great about the garment workers union is they do not discriminate between so-called illegals and legals. It's not relevant to them because that's how the boss divides people up. You know, so the union doesn't do that to protect these workers. And the biggest complaint, I mean, there's lots of lint in the air, which is why the workers have bandanas on. It's breathing in this lint. And also, some workers, you know, especially from China, might have TB. And that will go around, you know, if it's non-union, there's no health care, so that goes around very quick in a confined space. And this was interesting, so I saw a 10-year-old daughter. All the sizes of the clothes, these fashion clothes, weren't the sizes of the women making the clothes. You know, all like size 6 and size 8. I mean, who wears size 6? You know, like Nancy Reagan had size 6. You know, when I try and fit myself these size 6 clothes, I keep moving my organs around, you know, to squeeze into them. Like, oh, my liver's sticking out, you've got to shove it down. So the workers, none of them wear the clothes or even... So there is child labour and... you know, what shocked me though wasn't the child labour, because I knew about that. What was shocking is people 70 years old still working in sweatshops. Of course they can't retire, what they're going to retire on. So you've got these senior citizens who are working like 12, 14-hour days, making these clothes. I just thought they had such beautiful faces. I mean, I could draw these people just forever, because the faces of people are so fantastic. You know, and they're so sweet. You know, the seniors, like they take off their glasses and do their hair like this. And it's so sweet. Yeah, this is from El Salvador, machine workers. I mean, I don't know what it's like on the west coast, just on the east coast. And there's no windows, and this could be in any sort of high-rise building you see in Manhattan. And then you go through this door, and there's maybe 300 people in a room making clothes, and then you pick up the labels off the floor. You know, it's all these designer labels, because they'll go to the lowest bidder, which is always a sweatshop. So they keep their hands clean. You know, they'll go, we don't know where the clothes are made. You know, because it goes through this, like, broker. And so then you compare that to the showroom. You know, and you look at these models that wear the clothes, and the showroom and the magazines, and then you look at the blood to make these clothes. And I thought, oh no, I can never wear clothes again. You know, not only can't I eat meat, now I can't even wear clothes. You know, but again, I just look at these faces, and it's, you know, it's like all that potential of that person, intelligence on the face, and all these shadows and gradations. You know, when I'm drawing someone, it's like they have to analyse immediately, am I a threat to them? Am I with the immigration department? Am I going to hurt them in some way? They've got to quickly figure that out. And that's what's good about drawing and not taking photographs. If you take someone's photograph, they're very frightened of you, you know, in whatever situation. Drawing, they can see what you're doing. And I'm not against photography, I love photographs, but that worker can see you drawing, and they know you're not stealing. You know, you're not going to use that against them. That's what they look like, and that's okay. Oh, this is lunch hour on the fire escape. You know, you just get to stand on the fire escape with your Diet Coke and some food quickly, have a smoke. It's all the different carryings and pushing these bales of material. It's all around 43rd Street, around there, that area, 48, May. You know, labour now is never shown in artwork. And like a lot of bourgeois people, they go, well, there's no working class anymore. I love to hear this. There really isn't any working class. You know, I say, oh, fuck you. You know, who do you think sweeps your floor, makes your clothes? What are you in, like, you know what, if you have people say that, there's no working class anymore, well, where are you, what? Well, you know. You know, what was interesting in this was drawing this wire here. You know, this is water and electricity. Don't really go together that well. But what does the boss care? $4.25 an hour, right? They're not going to make a complaint. The most common complaint of the workers here is they don't get paid. So they can do 12 days or 3 months work, and the boss is going, well, we'll pay you soon, we'll pay you soon. And then they arrive to work and there is no sweatshop. The boss has moved there. Can you imagine waiting for your money? So they become the unwitting co-partners of the boss without any money. Oh, this is exactly what it looks like. So all the windows are closed and you have these fans. Oh, this is old. This is during the Gulf War, and I imagined, you know, oh well, you know, Bush has got oil jammies and he's in bed with Saddam, who's got nuclear jammies, and they can all get along really well. This was for Entertainment Weekly. During the bombing of the Gulf War, they call up and they say, oh, you know, they're really good at it. They say, do something on the Gulf War, but don't make it political. So, you know, there's limitations to working in commercial art. You know, you have to get around them somehow. Oh, this is, you know, Schwarzschwein and Cohen Bowels, I call them. I mean, boy, did they lie. They lied. Really lied. But I love to see how they're manufactured and come up again as presidential candidates after they've got their $6 million book advance. Love it. Only in America. It's so beautiful, it's so elegant. You know, you get war criminals, they come up, genocide against civilian populations, and suddenly they have integrity, they're loyal to their friends, and they're perfect presidential candidates. I mean, it doesn't really matter who the candidate is, that's what I'm saying. I mean, they could have anyone. It's just, it reflects big business, that's all. I mean, I'm sure he is loyal to his friends, and now he's in charge of an environmental agency. I thought, oh no, an environmental agency? So this is actual journalism, it's not inventing anything, they kind of lied. Oh, that's out of focus, it's taken by a patient, it is out of focus. It's in the TB ward of Goldstone AIDS ward. That's my best friend, Dr. Eric Avery. And I went in there with him to draw what happens in this ward just before Hillary Clinton was going to come and change healthcare forever. Didn't happen. So, that's him. And this is Eric's a psychiatrist, you know, as well as a medical doctor specialising in HIV. And this young man is a beautiful young man. Eric just told him, just before we took this photograph, that he had better plan his will and he had better plan, you know, it was going to happen soon. And he was 28 years old, I think. He said, will I live till 30 for my mother? I want to live till 30. And Eric didn't answer it. And what you can't see here is his legs were swollen gigantically because his heart wasn't working right. But he was lovely, and his best friend would look after him, this woman, and they're just, you know, real close friends. And you know, I met so many amazing people, just like the courage of these people. I can't even conceive of it. They have so much personal courage and dignity. It's beyond the beyond. And this is Eric, and that's actually Dr. Park. They needed a long pose, and I didn't want to hold a patient in a long pose because they're sick. So I got Dr. Park to pose. He's also a doctor on this ward. And, you know, he really works out, he looks good, and I made him like emaciated. And then, you know, they come to my show in New York, Dr. Park and Dr. Avery, and they're standing there, and he looks like that. Then one person like looks at Dr. Park and says, "Oh, you do look good, you know, what are you doing?" You know, and Dr. Park says, "Well, you know, I work out, you know, a bit of movement." That's the answer. And I realised we had some massive misunderstanding here. I said, "No, he's not HIV. You know, he was just posing." They go, "Yes, it's vitamins and it's exercise." We kept trying to explain this, but never mind, it didn't work. This is in the waiting room. It's just quick sketches of the coughing. And, you know, what I like to do when I do this is bring the work back. So before it's published, so if anyone has any problem with it, it won't be published. So if anyone they think it's inaccurate or they're upset by it, I will not have it printed. So I did the work, and then I came back, and the nursing staff was most upset by this, but they couldn't explain why. And they're upset by the waiting room picture. And it wasn't upset in a bad way, they just were very upset. And it's just like all the things they see, that was the one painting that upset them. So, you know, I wrote down what a patient set up to 60 patients a day, that's what they get through. They told me yesterday, I'm in shock, they told me 6 years ago, and I'm still alive and healthy, I'll give you my phone number, there are support groups, call me, I can help. This is a young woman, a commercial sex worker, who's in her early 20s, 22. I changed the name because of publication, and this was a very common problem. The family wants the patient to be in the hospital and treated for cancer. You know, when you have someone that's older, death has already crossed your mind. When you have a child that dies, it's the most obscene thing you can imagine. It's incomprehensible. The parents of these children cannot conceive of this. So this patient, when she was mentally competent, wanted to be off medication. She wanted to go home and die. Her parents want her to continue with medication and to be in the hospital. And in the end, after this debate, the ethics debate, they sent the patient home to die, because that was her wish. That's sort of done quickly. This was Charles was tied to the bed. And this is where this Charles is gay. He's had the same partner for 20 years. The partner has no rights over Charles whatsoever. No legal rights. Knowing what Charles wants, the family move into it and dictate the treatment. So it's a very difficult ethical dilemma for the doctor. So that's the drawing. When I was drawing Charles, his father came in. I think this was the first time his father had come in. He had trouble accepting his son was gay, and he had serious trouble about accepting his son was now dying. So he came in, and I saw in his face, he had his son's face, and I saw this shock. You know, but this was really good. He'd actually come in. He's now dealing with it, you know, in a positive way. And, you know, to see this beautiful father, you know, confront his son dying is, you know, this whole AIDS pandemic is so shocking because it's young people. It's incomprehensible because we're just not trained to see so many young people die. And this is a preventable disease, you know. This one I watched this man die, you know, and this was, he wanted to die in that ward, and he was good, and his family were really supportive, and this was a very positive situation. And, you know, I walked in the room to draw him, and I had to walk out again, because he, you know, he'd thrown up, and, you know, it was diarrhea, and I had just like a response that I knew it was death. And then I had to get closer and closer to do the drawing, which isn't about, it's like my fear of death. It's like get closer and you see, and I watched him and I saw this beauty of this person. I mean, I could almost, without mystifying it or the mystification of it, I could see the purity of this person. It was a beautiful thing this person was. It was like anything that happened to him that was bad was rolling away like a tide rolling out, and what was left was something of an essence of purity and goodness. I can't really explain it. This guy I thought was going to die the second. He couldn't breathe, and it's like in our lungs, you know, I'm not a doctor, I'm trying to explain this, there's little microbes in our lungs eating away our lung tissue as we speak. You know, healthy people eating away your tissue. When your immune system breaks down, they start eating away big chunks of your lungs. So that's what's happened in this case, and he was like really bad. Then all his family came in with kids, balloons, streamers, and he just perked right up. You know, and they're all in the room, maybe they had some dope or something. And it was really like a party, and he came right back, you know, because his family was there and he was loved. This is a doctor who died of AIDS. This is another doctor. And Eric told me this thing, Kaposi sarcoma, which is a type of skin cancer. And he's saying, so there are two comrade doctors here. He positioned himself to me like he wanted to be touched. He was also a doctor and my friend. People with full-blown AIDS are rarely touched. I was disgusted and frightened by the diseased flesh. I felt like I was putting myself at risk. And then he said something like he didn't want to put on rubber gloves because this was his friend. And I don't know how this story turned out. I don't think Eric put on rubber gloves, but as this was for publication, I lied and I put him in rubber gloves. And it really taught me a lot now, because, you know, now with friends, you know, that have full-blown AIDS, you know, I give them a foot massage and leg massage, you know, because I know this, I've been educated that people aren't touched and they need to be touched. You know, and it's great to give someone a massage and it makes them feel good. This is another story which I recreated. I didn't see this exactly. The day before he died, he had a taste for a blue cocktail type drink. He had diarrhea for a long time and it was so bad that he could only eat and drink sitting in a bath. I watched as the drink went right through him and turned the bath water blue. This is Sue, the cleaner. She's an African-American nurse, and I thought she was the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen, and she was the most popular. All the patients loved Sue because they'd tell her secret things they wouldn't tell doctors, but she was around. This particular patient is a young art student who was on vacation with her parents in Galveston. She's HIV, she was very sick. When she came, they brought her in. The insurance company wouldn't pay because she wasn't sick enough. She wasn't on an IV, so if she wasn't on an IV, they wouldn't pay for her. So I watched as all these doctors work with telephones talking to insurance companies. You know, all these precious hours they could be with patients. They're explaining to insurance companies why it's bad to put an IV in and why they should cover her. So this is the inefficiency of the system. I noticed these, just a little notice for me, the morgue out the back, it's all Spanish words. So this is where the infectious waste goes. I figured, why isn't this in English? Why is it all in Spanish? Any guesses, anyone? So all the needles, everything, you know where it's going. I put that in English there, but it's all in Spanish. If you go around the back, the sheets, they take off the sheets, everything. And it goes in Spanish red bags. Yeah, that's the end of this happy little series.